There is a podcast that lies between the imagination of two simple-minded earthlings. Travel with these two longtime friends, Jimbo and 80s E, as they attempt to explore the fifth dimension. Follow along with them as they take the key and unlock the door to the vast space between shadow and substance. This podcast is one of trivia, of insight, and of sounds and ideas from one of the greatest television shows ever produced. You are embarking on a timeless journey. There is your signpost up ahead. You are entering the tragedy of cinema's Twilight Zone.
The year is 1847. The place is the territory of New Mexico. The people are a tiny handful of men and women with a dream. 11 months ago, they started out from Ohio and headed west. Someone told them about a place called California, about a warm sun and a blue sky, about rich land and fresh air. And at this moment, almost a year later, they've seen nothing but cold, heat, exhaustion, hunger, and sickness. This man's name is Christian Horn. He has a dying 8-year-old son and a heartsick wife. And he's the only one remaining who has even a fragment of the dream left. Mr. Chris Horn, who's going over the top of a rim to look for water and sustenance. And in a moment, we'll move into the Twilight Zone.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema podcast. I'm your host, Jimbo, and joined today from the fifth dimension, my co-host,
80s E, from a little over 100 yards over the rim here in northwest side of Indy.
That's right. Our fifth dimension is in Indianapolis, Indiana, so anybody in the neighborhood, come by and say hi. At Eric's house,
yeah,
of course.
It's been hard to see over 10 feet over the rim with all this Canadian smoke that's been coming down.
Man, what is going on, dude? It looked like Tatooine from Star Wars here the other day. I'm telling you what, man. It's not safe to be outside.
Yeah,
so,
it's crazy.
With my bad lungs, it's pretty bad, so hopefully they get that under control. Canada, we love you. Our friends to the north.
Yeah.
So, Eric, here we are. We find ourselves once again in the fifth dimension. This is episode 23 of season 2, trudging right along now. 100 yards over the rim. It's a very interesting episode. And, you know, with you and your time travel, I thought you would like this probably a little bit more than I think you would, but we'll find out for sure. So, I know last time we recorded was a little long, so maybe this one will be a little shorter. I don't think there's quite as much information. Maybe we won't go down a WrestleMania rabbit hole again like we did last time. So go ahead, Eric,
right.
Take it away.
Here we go, 100 yards over the rim. This is the Twilight Zone season number 2, episode number 23. It was directed by Buzz Kulick. It was written by Rod Serling. We have some featured music here by Fred Steiner. That is notated for us. The original air date for this episode was April the 7th, 1961. And you know what time it is. It's this special segment in our episode that we like to call On This Day in History. All right, so on this day in film and TV history, and this is for the date of April the 7th, here's an interesting TV note. In 1927, all the way back to 1927, the first long-distance television transmission took place. And oddly enough, it was an image of Secretary of Commerce at the time, Herbert Hoover. There was an image of him sent from Washington, D.C. to New York City, and it was sent by none other than our friends at AT&T, who are still around. And just regarding our last episode, long distance call. Do you remember when we used to have, phones that hung on the wall, and you had like your local telephone, and then you had your long distance service? They were two separate entities, and if you wanted to call long distance out of your area code, you had to either have AT&T. I don't remember another MCI or somebody was a long distance carrier.
Do you remember the collect number you'd have to do? Remember those TV commercials about 1-800-COLLECT or whatever?
Yeah.
COLLECT.
Yeah, or we had a calling. We had these kids. We had this thing called a calling card, and it had all these numbers on it. And you had to punch them all in before you. You put money on the calling card, and you could use it to make long distance calls. But anyway, I'm kind of crossing over on our last week's episode. But so 1927, the first image sent. So let's move ahead to the 1970s. Okay, let's talk about the 42nd Academy Awards. Midnight Cowboy won Best Picture for the 42nd Academy Award in 1970. And then John Wayne won the Best Actor Award for True Grit. That's a great movie. I like the remake a little bit better than probably the original, oddly enough. True Grit, that was a great movie. I can't remember. It was in the mid-2000s, I think they did a remake. It slips my mind now. But True Grit and Maggie Smith won Best Actress. I have no frame of reference for this movie, but the movie was called The Prime of Miss Jane Brodie. That was the picture that she was in, so she won Best Actress in the 42nd.
You know who Maggie Smith is, though, right?
Tell me.
You don't know?
I can't think.
I think she was, now correct me, I'll probably get a hate mail if I get this wrong, but I do believe she was Professor McGonagall in Harry Potter series.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And she also played the grandmama in Downton Abbey.
Okay. Two more,
I believe.
Two more things that I'm not really familiar with, but that will be...
Bro, Downton Abbey's pretty good. I ain't gonna lie.
Okay.
You need to watch it.
All right.
You've got my Vudu access. Go watch it.
All right. Will do. So, back to our episode at hand here. We already talked about dates. Let's talk about the total production cost. We're back on track with a regularly filmed episode here. No videotape. $58,879. $58,879. Let me just take a look back at what the videotape episode cost. The long distance call was $50,747. So about $8,000 more to film this particular episode. When we adjust that for inflation, we're looking at almost $600,000. $598,886.07. Now, for production costs, was it worth $8,000 more to film? I think so. I mean, I think long distance call, we could have made the argument that it would have been better if it would have been filmed. Was it worth $8,000 more dollars? I think we could make the argument that it would have been, but not to keep beating that dead horse because that was from last week. But the dates of rehearsal for this episode was March the 1st and March the 2nd of 1961. And then we had 3 days for filming for this episode. It was March the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th, all in the year 1961. And Jimbo, that's all I have on preliminary trivia or details. Go ahead and hit us with that cast.
Well, before you do that, let me just my trusty companion here. I would like to put this in right here. We always heard that with the Twilight Zone, it was all about saving money. Mm-hmm. That was one of the big things from the studios and all that. So, according to my trusty Twilight Zone companion by Mark Scott Zickery, it says, in order to save money whenever possible, Buck Houghton liked to schedule 2 shows utilizing similar locations back to back, so that the crew would only have to make 1 trip outside of the studio. So yes, both 100 Yards Over the Rim and I believe it's the very next episode, the Rip Van Winkle caper, were shot in the desert near Lone Pine, California. The first to be filmed was 100 Yards Over the Rim. The episode boasts many good performances, but its powerful center performance by Cliff Robertson that holds the show together. So there you have that. So I like how they do that, where it's kind of like, I think, the Lord of the Rings. They filmed them all at the same time in New Zealand. I think it was over like a 3-year period. Mm-hmm. Instead of, doing one, coming back, doing another one, coming back.
Right.
They just stayed over there and used some of the same sets and all that. So I just thought that was a little bit of cool information.
Yeah, very cost effective for sure. That's pretty smart. So let's move to the plot of this episode.
Actually, do you want me to give the cast?
I'm sorry, yes. Why don't you give us the cast before I move on to the plot? I'm getting ahead of myself here.
I thought you was just going to jump right on in there and keep on going, brother. We didn't even get the cast.
My apologies. Right. Please tell us who was in this marvelous episode.
Man, that's all right. I'll just blame it on the Canadian smoke. All right, so we had, Cliff Robertson. I think he played an outstanding performance in this episode. It's pretty much his episode. He plays Christian Horn. Eric, I don't know if you know this, but he was in Spider-Man 1 and 2 from 2002 playing Ben Parker.
Really?
He was Ben Parker, the guy that gets shot.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's, Uncle Ben, yes. He was also in Escape from L.A., where he played the president. So I thought that was really cool. When I read that, I was like, oh man, Uncle Ben's in this. Then you had John Crawford, who played Joe. He was in the Poseidon Adventure, where he was a chief engineer. That's another great movie if you've never seen it. And then how about this one? Evans.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. Evans.
Crazy name.
It was played Mary Lou. She was in Bonnie and Clyde, where she played Velma Davis. Edward Platt, he was the doctor. He was in one very good movie with Cary Grant, North by Northwest, where he played Victor Larrabee. Great movie. He was also in one of James Dean's movies, Rebel Without a Cause, where he played Ray Francis. So 2 very good movies that Edward Platt had a lot of good acting roles. Mm-hmm. You had Miranda Jones. She was Martha Horn. You had Ken Drake. It just says he was credited as a man. You had Robert McCord, who played the sheriff. Jennifer Bunker as a woman. And then, yes, none other than John Astin. We all know John Astin. He played Charlie. Probably his most famous performance and probably the best. Gomez Addams from the Addams Family was in there. He was the guy that, was like, hey, how far are we going to go? All this. He's like, well, I'm just going to go over the hill or over the rim. But he was also in Return of the Killer Tomatoes. And he was in The Frighteners, the old Michael J. Fox movie, if you've ever seen The Frighteners. Have you ever seen it?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, you need to check it out.
I guess
Pretty
so.
good. And then, last but not least, you have the late, great Rod Serling comprising his role as, yes, the narrator and the self-host once again. So, Eric, take it away for that plot.
All right, I'll get to the plot now. So, Christian Horn is a member of an 1847 wagon train headed west. They are 1,500 miles from St. Louis and are now in the New Mexico desert. Many in the wagon train are ready to turn back, but Chris wants everyone to persevere. His son has had a fever for 11 days now, and Chris goes off looking for water, only 100 yards or so from the others, and suddenly finds himself in the present day. He can't quite bring himself to believe what he sees or where he is, but those he meets believe he's a man from the past. The trip in time does have one positive outcome, and we'll get to that at the very end. We see the positive outcome. So, if you don't have anything else, I'm just going to launch right into the first scene here. And
launch away.
It's a desert scene, and there is the said wagon train. The first scene that we get is I think there's 3 wagons. And at the head of this wagon train is Christian Horn, and he stops here in the middle of the desert. And boy, things are looking really bleak. Like they've gone close to 1,500 miles, or maybe it's 1,500 miles from St. Louis to California is their ultimate destination. But they're here in the New Mexico desert right now.
Right, but you find out they started in Ohio.
Yeah, it was born in Ohio.
And they've just now, and so now it's been 11 months, and they're still not into California yet.
That just makes you think, like, dude, people were risking their lives and their family's life. It's not,
right.
We take it for granted. Like, we want to go to, if you or I just wanted to take time off work and drive to California, we could get in one of our vehicles, and it probably would get us there, without too much trouble, hopefully. And it would take at the most maybe 2 days. You're talking 11 months versus 2 days. Or if you want to fly there, you can get there in 4 hours. It's just crazy. If you ever watch a documentary on PBS that talks about the Dust Bowl, there was a whole series about the Dust Bowl in the 1940s. That is wild. The people just in Kansas and Nebraska, they just up and left their farms and their fields and stuff, and they just risked life and limb to go to California, even in the 1940s. Crazy.
Well, not only that, but this is set in the time where the West was probably still really not explored. There was a lot of Indians in the territory, too. So that comes up in the episode quite a bit about, what about the Indians, you know?
So back to our episode here. The situation here, the context is the Christian's son is sick with a fever. We talked about that in the plot. He has been sick for 11 days. There's no water. There's no food. There's no medicine. And Christian's replied to the people in the company who want to turn back to St. Louis. He says, if you try to go the 1,500 miles back to St. Louis, I'll guarantee you'll leave your bones bleached on some desert. He's like, guys, we've already come, things look terrible. And even his own wife is like, look, Christian, you might want to find a place in a nice open area that is in a nice, beautiful area, because we're probably going to have to bury our son here shortly. Mm-hmm. Like, find a nice spot for it. And so it is no doubt very bleak situation. And they have weary travelers. I mean, I'm sure people can relate. Like, they're at the end of their rope, basically. Like, if they don't find food, water, some kind of shelter, like, they're all going to die out there anyway. But Christian's response is like, there's no way that we're going to, if we turn back now, there's no way you're going to make it back. We've gone too far. We've gone past the point of return. Like, we just got to keep pushing on. And it really just speaks to, again, just to reiterate that, like, the spirit of the people that lived in that day. It really captured that spirit. And after, they sort of have this powwow with the wagon train, the three wagons sort of circle each other and they have this discussion. It's decided that Christian is like, hey, I'm just going to go 100 yards over this rim here above in the desert. I'm going to see if I can see anything at the top of this thing and, try to search for water or what have you. And then the camera sort of pans really quickly, and then we get to Rod's introduction. And unless do you have anything else you want to add? That's sort of the first scene that we.
Well, just you think about 100 yards. That's basically a football field.
Yeah.
That's how far he is away, and that's how far this rim is. So it's basically like if I would say like a big sand dune that he's going up to the top of, and he's going to go look and see if he can see anything on the other side. So when it says 100 yards over the rim, it's basically saying, hey, I'm going to walk up this sand dune. It's about 100 yards and see what's on the other side. So
that's where the scene closes, and then we go to a standard like commercial, and then we come back and we see Christian. He's gone over the rim, and on the other side we see paved roads, right? But first he looks back to tell everyone kind of like what his eyes sees, and everyone in his company has disappeared, and he kind of exclaims to himself like, well, hey, what's going on? Like, what's going on here? And it's, it goes without saying that he's passed through the shadow of the Twilight Zone, and he's been catapulted into the future, because we can see power lines and paved roads now in the shot. So he walks down the other side of the hill, or the ridge there, and as he hits the paved road that he's never seen before, he has an encounter with a monster, if you will. He calls it a monster because he doesn't know how to describe it. It's really a semi-truck, right? It passes him going, pretty quick, pretty high rate of speed, and he's kind of thrown to the shoulder of the road as it passes by, because it passes by pretty close to him. And when he jumps to the side of the road, his rifle discharges, right? And I can't tell where he got shot. Like, do you get shot in the arm or the hand? I don't know what happened. It looks like it fires, and it might have hit him, like, grazed his hand. The episode never really says, but
you know what? I didn't even know that he got shot. I just knew his firearm discharged. I didn't really pay attention that he got shot.
I don't know. He's got blood on his left hand, and he kind of clutches his wrist a little bit when he's on the shoulder of the road. But then he stands up and he just starts walking. He starts walking up this road, and then he comes to a sign after he's walking for some distance, and the sign reads Joe's Air Flight Cafe and Gas Station 1 mile ahead. And it's interesting, if you follow the Twilight Zone has a Facebook group, and I pulled a picture off. I'll post it when we post this episode on our Facebook group. but the Air Flight Cafe actually still stands. Like, I think it was built in like the 1930s or 40s, and it's been bought by, various owners and been remodeled, and it doesn't look anything like it does in this episode now, but I guess it's still, as of, I think, 2015. So I don't know if it's still there now, but as of 2015, it was still around. So as Christian walks to the there's also gas stations, not only a diner, it's a gas station as well. He meets the proprietor, and Christian meets Joe, and he's the proprietor, the owner of the cafe. And so we first have him walking over the rim, and then the third part of the procession through the episode is resting at the cafe. He meets Joe. Joe asks Christian how long he's been in the desert and offers him fresh water and medical attention, like when they go inside the cafe. So they have a little bit of a conversation outside the cafe, and Joe is trying to like size this guy up, and he's asking like, how long you been out here? And he says like 11 months or something like that, or a year. And he looks weird, right? Because his clothing is not modern in any way. Which I read something interesting too about who was the actor that played Christian? Cliff Robinson.
Cliff Robinson.
Yeah, I guess. And this may be in my notes, and I'm bringing it up too early, but I'll just insert it here. I guess it was suggested by the prop people for this episode that he wears like a traditional cowboy hat, but he insisted.
I have it right here.
Oh, okay, you got it.
I have it right here.
Okay, go ahead and read it for us.
Trusty companion. So, as far as the Chris Owen, he plays with his role with intelligent conviction, singing in movement, expression, even accent, every bit of the 19th century man. Director Buzz Kulick recalls being impressed with Robertson's methods. He came to me while we were rehearsing with an 8 or 9 page analysis of his character that he had written. And he said, will you read this and see if you agree or disagree, or if is there anything you can add? Well, we used to do that when we were all kids, just out of acting school, but very few people take the time to do that. In his striving for authenticity, Robertson sometimes went to lengths that people on the set found curious. Both Kulick and Robertson wanted the main character to not look like a cowboy, but rather to wear what actually might have been worn by an Easterner on his way west. Says director of photography George Clemens, do you remember he wore a big stovepipe hat? It was Cliff's idea, and I was so scared that we'd be laughed off the screen on the first scene. In fact, Rod was back in Interlaken, town in upstate New York bordering Cayuga Lake, and I even insisted that Buck call him and talk to him. Comedy and drama are so close that if you step over one side, you get a laugh, and you ruin the whole effect of the drama. But I was wrong, and I was the first guy that admitted it. Cliff was a great guy, and I thought he did a blank of a job.
Yeah. So I guess he insisted that he wear that hat, the stovepipe hat, which, fits perfectly. You can't see it any other way. I can see how it wouldn't look right if he wore like a traditional, like, cowboy hat. So we're in the diner. Joe's offered him fresh water, and it's funny, like when he hands him that glass of water from the diner, how Christian holds it up, and he's like, I can't, like, you can tell that he's amazed that the water is so crystal clear, probably compared to the dirty, muddy water that he's been drinking all the way out here, right? I thought that was a great little acting tell. That was really neat. So as Mary Lou, who is Joe's wife, she tends to Christian. I think she's like a nurse or something on the side, or so she has, a kit in the back of the diner. She binds up and cleans up the blood on his left wrist or whatever. And then this is a key point. Eventually, she gives him penicillin, which she tells him will keep the infection away. Yeah. And so then Christian just kind of has this look of dazed and bewildered, and he's kind of walking around the diner looking at all these modern effects. To him, he doesn't know what to make of them or think of them. He doesn't.
The jukebox.
Yeah, right. The jukebox and some of the dishes that are on one of the counters. And so Joe is just really inquisitive. He's like, where are you from? And that's where we talked about earlier. Christian says he's from Ohio, and he talks about how he got to be where he is. He went over the rim to look for water, and then Joe says, well, there's a spring, like not, I don't know, so many yards or a mile down the road. And Christian asks him, well, do they have game? And he's, Joe's like, game? Like, we don't hunt for game anymore. Like, something is not right, right? And so I already talked about Mary Lou giving him the penicillin. And Christian asked, well, where did you get this? And she said, the drugstore. And then she explains that this will keep infection away. And then Christian says, so you say this is good for sickness or something to that effect. And then we get to an important part of the episode. There's a calendar on the wall that states like 1961. It's right behind. It's in the camera shot where Christian in the frame where Christian is standing. And then he turns around and looks over his shoulder, and it's really dramatic music. And on the top of the calendar is like a wagon train, which is exactly what he's in. But the calendar says September 1961. And then Christian, he just is bewildered. He's like, who are you? And where am I? Where is this place? And
well, he says it says September 1961. He's like, 61. He's like, it's 1847.
Yeah, right.
So he's
right. So after that, after he tells her, he goes, where am I? What's going on here? What is this place? Where am I? And Mary Lou drops the glass when he says 1847 or whatever. He backs away, and then the scene kind of ends. And we go to commercial. And then the next scene, we have like the doctor emerges from like a back room after a few seconds. And so Joe and the doctor and Mary Lou, they have this discussion, and they're asking the question, well, Doc, do you think his problem, is it physical or is it psychological? Is he suffering from some type of delusion? Because this guy has got the most airtight story about his family, where he came from, and the doctor even says, well, the fillings in his mouth are true to the time. Fillings. Like, no modern dentist put these in because they don't look like anything that anyone would do in the current time.
And I like what he said. He said, well, he's a little malnourished, he said, but otherwise he's a fine specimen.
Right.
He's perfect shape, basically.
Yeah. So after they have a little bit of a discussion, the doc is like, hey, I need some coffee. We're going to talk about this. And, he talks about he seems very rational, et cetera, et cetera. The doc decides he's like, this is out of my hands. I'm going to call the sheriff and get the authorities involved to take care of this guy. And so the doc goes over to the phone and he calls the sheriff. And about that time, Christian comes out. He's holding an encyclopedia. And he's found an entry in the encyclopedia describing his son, who ultimately will become a pioneer in vaccine research as an MD. And I think it was like child care, like child pediatrics and stuff.
It was in vaccines and child's diseases.
Yeah. And so Christian says, quote, he says, that's my son. That's Chris. Maybe crazy, or the world may be turned upside down, but I know that I've been put here for a reason. A reason. Thank you. You've been kind and gracious, and I appreciate it. And is this where he like runs out of the diner at that point?
Yeah, but I think it's interesting to say that the doctor also says, well, from what he's describing, it sounds like his boy has pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, he says that. He's like, hey, we called the authorities. The authorities are coming, to get you some help or whatever. And that's where he takes his gun and he basically shoves in, I believe, what's his name, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Joe's chest, and he runs out the door and takes off down the road.
Yeah. So, yeah, he was like the doc said, he was a pretty fine specimen because he's running pretty fast on the shot going outside the cafe. Yeah. Like he's hightailing it. So then there's several frames of him running down the road that he was just on, and he makes it back to the rim, and he's running away from the sheriff back to the rim. The patrol car catches up to Christian as it turns off the road. Christian stumbles and drops his rifle as he's starting to run back up to the top of the rim again. And
he drops the pills too, but he picks the pills back up.
Oh, does he? I didn't catch that little tidbit. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Joe and the sheriff, they give chase. They're running after him. But when he crosses over the rim, the wagon train returns into view, and he basically disappears from Joe and the sheriff's sight. And
well, he turns back around and looks too, and the sheriff and them aren't there.
Right.
So it's basically reverse of what he saw at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, he's back with the wagon train again. He sees it in his view down the hill, and he goes back and joins him. And is this where the wife is like, he's like, or he says something like, "Sorry, I was gone so long," or something like that, and she's like, "What are you talking about? You were only gone like 20 seconds or whatever."
A few seconds.
Yeah. And so then I think at that point he gives the penicillin to his wife to give to his son, Christian Jr.
Yeah, he says give him 2 pills of these so he should be okay.
And then after this scene concludes, he also has a couple interactions with the people in the wagon train. Oh, he does look down at his left wrist. I didn't notice that the last.
Yeah,
his wound is gone. It's not bound up anymore. It's back to normal, whatever. And so the next scene,
I think he has a little talk with Mr. Adam. John Aston. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Charlie.
Yep.
And he said, "What did you see over there, over the rim, or whatever?"
And
he said, "What's he say? Something like." Something more than you can realize, or something like something more of importance more than you can realize.
So it really bolsters his determination again to keep pressing on because of what he read in the encyclopedia about his son, and
I think that's almost just a guarantee that they're going to make it now.
Yeah.
And I think that's bolstered his confidence.
Right. So the next scene, we're back, recovery back at the diner. So Joe and Mary Lou are together in the diner, and they look at Christian's rifle, and it looks like it's been in the desert for 100 years. So he picks up the rifle at the scene or whatever. And then Joe and Mary Lou are they're perplexed. They're like, where did he come from, and who is this guy? And then Joe says finally, like, I think he went back to wherever it was that he came from, because when we got to the top of the hill, he just disappeared. So it leaves you with that mystery of the gun. Looks like it's set out in the desert for 100 years. But when Christian first came to the diner, Joe made the comment that the gun looked like it was brand new, like it had been manufactured.
Like less than a year.
Yeah. So
like a replica.
Yep. So that's.
And I think it's really cool too when Joe goes to pick up the gun or something, it kind of breaks off. You know what I mean? Like it's been out there a while. It's kind of brittle. You know what I mean?
Yep. So, and then the very last scene, Christian's wagon with his wife and Christian Jr. He looks back, and it looks like Christian Jr. is already starting to feel better. He's sitting up in the back of the wagon, and they're like he's like on to California. And then we close with Rod's closing narration. So, trivia-wise, you got anything off top? Or do you want me to launch into trivia? Okay.
Go ahead. I couldn't find really anything for this episode. Like I said, it was very scarce for this episode.
Yeah, I don't have a lot either. We already talked about Cliff Robinson's his preparedness and detailed treatment of this character. Aha, I gotta throw this one in here. The Sheriff's Patrol Car is the 1961 Ford Galaxy used as the Mayberry Sheriff's Department patrol car in Season 2 of the Andy Griffith Show.
I was gonna say. I thought the way they were driving it almost hits that telephone pole too, when they're chasing him up the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, couldn't let that piece of trivia slide. So J.J. Abrams said that this episode was his personal favorite out of the whole series. So Star Wars fans, there you go. This episode aired April 7th, 1961, 5 months before the events taking place in the calendar month posted in the diner, September 1961. There was an ad for Oasis cigarettes at the end of the episode. And then I talked to, there's a little bit of coordinates for the building for the Air Flight Diner. I won't go into all that. It just says that the building had been closed and was in disrepair, but was still standing on US 395 near Grant and Olancha, California. So, as of 2015. And Jimbo talked about this earlier. The Rip Van Winkle caper and this episode were filmed back-to-back on location in Lone Pine. Owen S. Kimura of Young and Rubicon, the sponsor advertising agency, read about Cliff Robinson being signed to the Twilight Zone, and on that same afternoon he came across an 8-year-old biography issued by CBS. Robertson was being criticized by the dean of Antioch College because the biography claimed that the actor had won letters in football, basketball, tennis, and track. Of course, the college had no intercollegiate sports programs. Kimura dug into the facts, and it turned out the biography was distributed by CBS. There were corrections in Robertson's own handwriting trying to set the record straight way back then. The error was publicly noted and corrected to ensue no bad publicity would result during Robertson's appearance on the program. So apparently there was an erroneous report that he had lettered in all these sports. He tried to correct the error and wrote a letter, and someone wrote a...
CBS said, nah.
Yeah, they wrote a hit piece about him, and so the sponsors were like, we better get out ahead of this before he stars in this episode or whatever, so... That's all I have as far as trivia. On to observations and questions and overall ratings.
All right, Eric. How far would you go to save your child?
Pretty far, I think. Yep.
You say I'd go till it was done, right?
I mean, I don't know. I'd like to believe that I would do whatever it took, but, I've never been thrust into that, that situation, I guess. So
that kind of reminds me of that movie, John Q.
Oh, yeah.
With Denzel.
Yeah.
That's a great movie. If anybody's never seen that, watch that. It puts in a whole new perspective about how far you would go to do something to save your son.
For sure. Here's a question for you. A timeline continuum question. Question mark. Christian Jr.'s idea for penicillin, was it stolen from the future? Right?
You know what I thought about when I was watching this again before we started recording.
Yeah.
I just got done watching Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. That's all I could think about.
I knew it.
If people have seen that movie, I've seen it twice right now.
Don't spoil it.
If you've seen that movie, I'm not going to say any spoilers, but I got that vibe from it. If you understand what you know where I'm going because you went with me to see it. So, is it one of those things where if Chris, if Christian Horton, or even if Joe or the sheriff and all of them would have stopped him, I think an alternate ending could have been that they stopped him and locked him up, and then his son basically gets erased from the encyclopedia, and then it could show like there's no more people on the earth because there was no vaccinations for children, there was no vaccines for the child's diseases and all that. I think that would have been a very interesting alternative take on it.
Yeah,
personally. But if you remember, I know you're a big Back to the Future fan. Even in that, when he would do something in the past, it affected the future. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So when he came back to the future. So that's something to think about. That's what I was thinking about in this episode, too.
Yeah. Overall, my takeaway, I thought it was a solid episode. I would probably rank it with Long Distance Call. I love the time travel ones. You know that, of course. Yeah, I would say it was probably, for me, it was like a 7.5 to an 8 again. I would rank it about, it was definitely really good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was almost singularly acted, and obviously Christian was the main character and carried the bulk of the weight. It was a pretty straightforward, simple plot. There wasn't too many big twists per se. But overall, I like the idea of, I just like the overall idea of a guy like you talked about, like he's gonna do whatever it takes to save his son. He's a hard-nosed guy and never say die. He's sturdy built guy from the 1800s. That those people were just built different. The pioneers, they were unbelievable people, and you can read countless stories about their bravery and their determination in the history books. So yeah.
Yep. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Personally, I'm going to give this probably an 8 to an 8.5.
Oh. I
like history. I like reading about history. And when you thrust in somebody into the situation, I'm going to go as far as to say that, now I'll have to go back and research, but I think you can already make a strong case for Cliff Robinson getting a tragedy award for the singular performance of this season. I thought he was fantastic in this episode.
Okay.
I mean, let's face it. If he would have had a terrible showing in this, the episode would have tanked.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean? It wouldn't have got an 8 or an 8.5. I think he brought this episode to life. He made you believe that he was from 1847 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think his facial expressions, his acting ability, it was perfect. He's got to be, he's in the running. I'll say that, but I have to. I say that now. It's been a while since we watched the other 22 episodes, too. So I need to go back and make sure, with only a handful, 5 or 6 left in this season that we need to cover. I think he makes a great case for him having a tragedy award for the best performance of the season so far, personally.
Better than
very good episode.
Better than Agnes Moorehead?
Well, this is the male version. We get the female version too. Don't forget.
Okay. All right.
You remember we give 2, Eric. It's been a while. You need to go back and listen to season 1 recap and make sure you're tracking along too, because you got to have your episodes 1 to 10. Don't forget when we do our wrap up show, the tragedy awards. So for season 2.
Yeah.
And not only that, you're going to do, while we're on that, you need to do the top 10 of this season. And then we're going to take season 1 and season 2 and your top 10 combined out of season 1 and season 2.
This will be interesting.
So it will be very interesting. Yeah. We'll really have to see, because to me, season 1 is blowing season 2 out of the water so far. That's all I'm saying. But when you get a strong performance like this, it makes you think. So
yeah.
Well, I think we've rambled long enough, Eric.
Yep.
You got anything else to add before we wrap her up?
No, let's move over the rim.
All right. If you'd like to follow us on Facebook, we are the Tragedy of Cinema Podcast on Facebook. If you want to join us on TikTok, you can find me there. If you want to email us, we are the Tragedy of Cinema Podcast, or thetragedyofcinema@gmail.com. If you'd like to get on the Facebook group and message Eric and tell him how bad he is at the Twilight Zone, that's fine too.
Please don't hesitate.
So, yeah. With that being said, I think this episode's coming to a close, and that's a wrap.
And cut!
Mr. Christian Horn, one of the hearty breed of men who headed west during a time when there were no concrete highways or the solace of civilization. Mr. Christian Horn and family and party heading west after a brief detour through the Twilight Zone.